Hi, David. Thank you so much for having us here at the Refectorio Gastromotiva. We are in Rio. For the audience, could you start by briefly introducing yourself?
Okay, so I'm Brazilian,
Yeah.
even though I don't look like in everyone's minds like a Brazilian, but I was born in the south of Brazil.
Uh-huh.
For a long time, I wanted to understand what I was good at or what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
And after traveling many years in the world, I found myself in love with people and places through food,
Yeah.
using food as a place to connect us.
Yeah.
So I went to study culinary science when gastronomy was starting.
That was in Brazil, right?
Yeah, like 20 years ago. And then I found myself in social entrepreneurship. When I understood the concept of social business by Professor Muhammad Yunus, I mentioned, why not social gastronomy? How you can bring opportunities to people who live in extreme vulnerability in areas that are very dangerous, but you can bring prosperity. So I consider myself today maybe a designers of social solutions using food as a tool for
social change,
transformation and for connection. I believe connection is the key
Yeah.
for dialogue and for building
totally
solutions together.
I totally agree. That's wonderful. So maybe you can share a few words on Gastromotiva. What is it exactly? What's the purpose and the mission behind the organization?
So mainly Brazil, let's say Brazil is a place that we all lived in our history with social inequalities.
Yeah.
So Gastromotiva starts with gastronomy and the motivation.
Yeah.
The power within to make real change in yourself. You cannot motivate someone, but you can get motivated when you have opportunity, when you have resources, and when you have care, you know? In Brazil, there is a lot of lack of care of people from all the spaces. You cannot wait anything from the government, you cannot wait from the company. It's a place that you have to survive. So being an entrepreneur in Brazil is a question of survival, but also a question of opportunity. I had all the opportunities of my life.
Yeah.
And when I understood that I had something to share, the science of gastronomy, with people in disadvantage, started Gastromotiva. So Gastromotiva is a non-profit that uses gastronomy for social transformation of individuals and communities. And how we do that? We have 4 pillars. First, self-development, is the transformation, the key for self-responsibility, for the motivation, but for looking for opportunities. And then it's jobs, it's skills, empowerment through entrepreneurship and employment.
Yeah.
The third is food insecurity and health.
Yeah.
And all the programs you have on that. And then it's climate. And you have there how you fight food waste,
food
how
loss.
you support local farmers.
Yes.
So when you put all these 4 pillars together, we have many projects on that. I can go.
Of course, and we will talk about this.
It's like how we see with all these 4 pillars to generate social transformations towards people and communities.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that perspective that you just gave us. Now, if we bring back the focus to Brazil, it's a country where you still have a lot of inequalities in terms of access to education, access to foods. We mentioned food insecurity, energy, sanitation. Why is that? What are the biggest challenges that you have here in Brazil, and how did it evolve over time?
Brazil is a very young country compared to many other countries like in Asia and development.
Yes.
And there is here a history of exploitation for the country's resources, but also for the people.
Yeah.
It's a very recent story about supporting on education and health. So the systems here are incomplete. There's not much advancement. And we have lots of problems. We have a lot of challenges also with our systems, our political system, our economic system, our cultural system. It's hard in Brazil to have long-term strategies. There is a lack. We are full of the natural resources, but we don't have the governance necessary to develop that sustainably and also towards people.
Yeah.
We could talk about this forever.
For ages, yeah.
But what I see nowadays in this, if we talk now, just after the pandemic, is a retrocess to the 80s. The damage that has been done in these last 10 years it will take at least 30 to 40 years to recover, according to
So
specialists.
what kind of damage are you talking about in terms of politics, in terms of institutions, public institution, private institution, the collaboration that didn't happen to get between both parties?
Let's say unemployment.
Yeah.
When we started 2004, it was 13%. It went down to 8% at some time in 2011.
Yeah.
And now it's back to 12 million people are in unemployment rates. Let's say hunger. With the governments of Lula 2004 to 2008, we went out of the hunger index. Imagine a country that went out of the hunger index. And then from 2013 to now, we have 55% now of the population in food insecurity.
That is crazy.
Let's say out of that, 19 million people are in extreme hunger and they don't know if their, let's say a mother, will be able to feed their child the next day. And then you have Brazil as a power tech on agribusiness. We export the main grains to all over the world. And then you have a waste. The numbers of waste are 9 times the number of hunger that I just mentioned to you.
It's crazy.
So there is a systemic problem. And let's say what we do with hunger, education, when you put all together, you cannot see hunger as an issue of feeding. It's an economic issue. It's a health issue. It's an educational issue.
Absolutely.
And all of this is a big cost issue to the country.
Of course.
So there are a lot of, I think the opportunity is for civil society, companies, and the government to understand how those partnerships on the systemic changes can happen.
Yeah.
And that's what Gastromotiva is going, because we've been working with this for 18 years, working with individuals, but now we're really looking how, like say, how to end hunger in one community. So we have a social technology to become
and then you can scale, you can scale a solution that you've designed.
So you need to understand the problem from within.
Yeah.
And that's why Gastromotiva has this power, because we have so many people who went through our programs that now, after being a cook, a chef, wants to become a social entrepreneur, and they get to the places that the government don't go, don't enter, don't listen, don't know enough, because of the machine of the government.
Of course.
So I think that's the beauty of that is ahead of us with the use of technology and data, how we can really change communities through the perspective of the community.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned many times the importance and power of collaboration. Now, you co-founded the Social Gastronomy Movement, which is one of the partners for the tour. By the way, you provided us with many organizations and companies worldwide that are using food for social change, for transformative systems. And I just want you to tell us a little bit more about it. So if I understood well, and if I summarize it well, Social Gastronomy Movement gathers entrepreneurs, corporate executives, politicians, individuals, any change maker that basically is passionate about food and want to use food to achieve social and or environmental change. Now, what is your definition and how did it start, basically?
You know, I'm going to tell you a story about that. So
please do.
When I mentioned to you social gastronomy comes from social business.
Yeah.
So how a business can go into a very vulnerable community, provide local jobs, make better food for the people who live around, bring opportunities and all of that. And when I started Gastromotiva with the concept of social business and social gastronomy, I was very alone. There was Jamie Oliver in the UK doing something. I heard about an organization called Koto in Vietnam, so I went there in 2009 and visited. There is Gaston Acurio in Peru doing an amazing job, you know, changing the country, but he has a school that he supports, and I go there in 2012. And through time, I started to become a social entrepreneur and getting inspiration from other social entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So there was the chefs community, you know, the Michelin, the 50 Best, there was the social entrepreneur community.
Yeah.
Where is our community?
Yeah.
Where can I go that I don't need to explain myself?
Yeah.
So my idea was to gather all these the first idea wouldn't bring so many people like you mentioned today.
Okay.
Was just for us to feel the belonging.
Yeah.
And we all run institutions that use food for social change and bringing opportunities.
But worldwide, right? Not
Worldwide,
only in
because I
Brazil,
used to
like
travel
no
to the
borders, no
I
geographical
became a
borders.
young
Yeah.
global leader by the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
So wherever I go, I visit projects.
Yeah.
I visit more than 30 countries,
Yeah.
just visiting
Yeah.
projects. And then I told this idea to a friend of mine, a young global leader. She used to work for Cargill, and she said, I believe in your dream. I know what you're talking. I know the value of this.
Yeah.
So we'll support you for 3 years. In that moment, I had Nikki,
Yeah.
who is a co-founder,
Yes.
as a CEO of Gastromotiva, and we said, okay, let's incubate this project inside Gastromotiva, because different from Gastromotiva's mission that is in the community towards individuals, this is global. It's to bring also awareness.
Yeah.
So we worked for 3 years, gathering all these organizations, making 4 summits around the globe, and then it became the mission that we all co-created, these 12 organizations and others, through 2 years, which is a very difficult and challenging project to get everyone together, which is to connect, to collaborate, to end in partnerships. And we've been feeling that, like we know that when COVID came, a few of the entrepreneurs were inspired by Gastromotiva to start something in their country like Comida para Todos with
Yeah.
Rafa.
Yeah.
We got connected to other organizations. So the beauty of it is that there is no ownership. There is a governance in place. It's a community that wants to become a movement. And then it's when everyone is invited. And I think social gastronomy is a concept that you use food and gastronomy exactly to understand, to bring awareness and see what can you do, what can I do. You are doing a TV show, you're showcasing all of that.
Yeah.
I'm going back to my community because I'm studying, after studying systems change with the UN, with social gastronomy, I said, listen, for this to really happen in a community that I go inside and I'm welcomed by guns and the schools close half of the year and the mother cannot even feed her child with proper milk. She's giving sometimes soft drinks to feed their children. And I go into the house, I said, what are we talking about?
Of course.
So
we can do something.
With COVID, we decided at Gastromotiva to really understand how can you change a system from within.
Yeah.
And that's where the Solidarity Kitchens started. So I think the social gastronomy movement, just to clear, is a source of information, of connectivity, of belonging. But how we use all of that is towards changing what is in your heart towards others.
Yeah.
Maybe that can explain how I
Yeah,
see
no,
it
of
now.
course, it's perfect. So the idea is really to collaborate, to be exposed to different things, to understand, and then it has to end up in partnerships, ideally, so the impact can be leveraged.
Like the one we are doing.
Exactly.
We're taking this idea to the world.
Yeah, that's the goal.
We're connecting now because we didn't know it yet, but you connected to all the team.
Exactly.
That's the magic.
Yeah.
Now we're collaborating. Who knows? Maybe someone that is watching this wants to partner with Gastromotiva, wants to know more about social gastronomy. And that's how I think the ripple effect of when you want to do something towards others, the universe provides all the elements and people to make that.
Yeah.
I'm for sure, for the 18 years that I've been leading Gastromotiva, is the one that most got out of it. Because I get to see everything.
Yeah.
I get to experience everything.
You get perspective
And I
out
get
of this.
to be able to crash all my ideas every day. Because in the end, we know very little.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, bringing back the focus to food and the challenges that revolve around food, especially the social and environmental one. What are your thoughts on malnutrition, food insecurity, food waste, food loss? According to you, what are the biggest challenges around food? Not only in Brazil, maybe you can use the example of Brazil, but around the world. And what can we do to fight food waste, to fight food loss, to fight all the social inequalities that exist around food?
I think we are operating 2022 after a pandemic with a perspective of a lot of outcomes due to climate change.
Yeah.
working still with the mindset of 50, 70, 100 years ago, with a new generation really becoming more aware, but more disorientated how to start.
I agree.
There is so much information. So there is a need for reconnectivity of man with nature, man with purpose, and then man with society.
Of course.
And I think that's how we should be tackling the new generations. When you ask me all of this, what comes to my mind now is about what I mentioned to you. The 19 million people who are facing hunger, 18 million are solo mothers. 8 million are solo mothers. So they don't know what their children are going to eat next day. So we need to take care of that children now for the next few years. We need to make sure that that mother is well cared, has security, has opportunities to take care of their family. So I think you need to start really from the needs of society, but bringing with government more fair public policies, because we need the government, but it's everyone's work. When you talk about food waste, the biggest food loss is not at home, but it's at home that we change our culture. But the big food loss is also 80% a problem of infrastructure, production, technology. And this is 20% of the government and 80% consumers and companies. Hunger, what I mentioned to you before, is 80% government, 20% civil society and companies. So you need to maybe prioritize how do you start?
Of course.
Government, companies, and civil society. What we do at Gastromotiva, we generate ideas, initiatives, we test. It becomes a project, it becomes a program, it can become a social technology. And what does it mean as a social technology? That can be scaled and multiplied, replicated. But I will never reach the whole country if the government doesn't understand how that social technology can be spread all over Brazil. And what happened to us is a very difficult way to dialogue with the government. So we work still in silence. So I think for everything you mentioned, we need to stop working in silos, see where each one has its own best resources to share and work together. There is no formula. Where you're from, where I'm from, the formula is very different. But I think we lack to put more time and listening into the cultural change that needs everything. We always want the next, without giving time for the cultural change. We've been trying to change our culture within Gastromotiva since COVID. And it's hard. If you're in an organization of 50 people, it's hard. I can imagine in a city, in a country. But we will not go to the next level if we don't change culture. And the culture that we need to change is towards the challenges of this decade, because we only have this decade to solve all the problems. A good example of working together is the municipality of Rio de Janeiro and the state of Rio de Janeiro. They started to see what are the best technologies being done by nonprofits, and they are creating an initiative from the government that can scale the solidarity kitchens from Gastromotiva as an inspiration. So I think that's the best place where we can say, oh, we have something being done. Go there and experience, see with your own eyes, and with your team, create the solution, and we're always going to be there to share with you, because in our case, the social entrepreneur's dream is that the world doesn't need what we do. Imagine if Brazil continue like going economically and all of that changes, I would be doing social business. That was my first idea.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So basically what you're saying is focusing on what's happening locally, so you make it work, so you gain credibility, so you can easily work, or more, at least, easily work with the government and maybe have them leverage what you're doing locally and bring it,
Perfect.
bring it to the city, bring it to the country afterwards, ideally. But yeah, so first you have projects that are really focused locally to gain credibility. No, that's a really good point. Now I want to talk a little bit more about Gastromotiva. For the people in the audience who aren't really familiar with what you're doing, could you please tell us more about what Gastromotiva is exactly? You mentioned Solidarity Kitchen, you mentioned many things. Could you sum it up a little bit for the audience?
Practically, we offer programs, educational programs,
Yes.
vocational training
Yes.
on kitchen assistant, because it's where you start in any job.
Yeah.
And it's a fast way to get into the hospitality market. Cooks, with an emphasis of fighting food surplus, with more like an environmental consciousness.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
The small entrepreneurs that can become formal. Our second program is where we are, Refeitório Gastromotiva. It's our
Yes.
showroom for what we believe to the world.
Yeah.
In this place happens workshops on nutrition. We work menus only with food surplus. We feed people in need,
Yeah.
people that are homeless, people that live in occupations, people that are trans and are working in the streets. But here there is no division. We are here to feed people.
Yeah.
And then with the pandemic, we also created a new program which is called Solidarity Kitchens. So Gastromotiva fundraises with companies and individuals enough resources to support one central kitchen in a vulnerable community. That means there are people going through hunger, that a healthy meal can support that individual or family for 1 day, 1 week.
Yeah.
But supporting this kitchen not only to serve food for the community is around 1,500 meals per kitchen per month,
Wow.
but also supporting this individual or organization to create a business plan that can become sustainable and
Yeah.
scalable for the community.
Yeah.
For instance, I give you an example.
Yeah, please.
Our former student, Urideia Andrade, in São Paulo, she was also a co-founder of Gastromotiva. We started as a catering business. She left in 2012 and took the catering with her, so it's a successful catering nowadays.
Yeah.
When the Solidarity Kitchen, she saw her business close. When COVID came, she had to close her business. So we say, look, Urideia, we are looking for former students to turn your kitchen to deliver meals for people in need through COVID who need food, people that don't have even a gas at home. And she said, I will turn my kitchen into that. So we support you with money for rent, for electricity. We support you, and also for you to have some income generation, and you give that meals. And then, after 2 years, we had opened more than 130 kitchens in 5 states of Brazil, including the Amazon. We are working the border of Brazil, Colombia, and Peru.
That's
Places
crazy.
that are very bad assisted
Yeah.
by government, by non-profits, by so many places
Yeah.
that I went to visit. And we saw that these kitchens, Solidarity Kitchens, not towards fighting hunger, can become drive to become either a social business or a community developer in so many aspects that food can change. Some of them are building little urban farms in their community. Some of them are becoming replicators of the courses that they have done at Gastromotiva, the kitchen assistant
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
57% of them want in the future to become multipliers of Gastromotiva in that community.
That's amazing.
So at Gastromotiva now, we have an innovation area with product development that we are organizing. How can we get more data out of our programs and the people who benefit of our
Make
programs
it more digital
to
to
leverage? How can we make our programs for
Yeah.
capacity building digital?
Yeah.
So while we run this project, Solidarity Kitchens, we are working on that after this pandemic, how can we scale everything that we have done all these years? So Gastromotiva, when you think, it's education, humanity, and social technology.
that's
The
fantastic.
ultimate goal.
That's fantastic. And so
Because food is in everywhere, it's in the name, so I can use,
No, but-
Gastromotiva, food for change, but the 3 words I would say: education, humanity, social technology.
So yeah, basically going back to the training classes, training courses that you give here, who are the students basically, and what's the goal? So you mentioned the different pillars, you mentioned what you're doing, but just to give a concrete example, who comes here and learn about nutrition, and what's the end goal for them?
Okay. At Gastromotiva, at the vocational training programs, we have all people coming from very vulnerable areas.
Yeah.
Their basic income, it's about 3 minimum salaries per family. 70 to 80% of them are women, and most are black. So people, we really are an example of the inequalities in our society.
Yeah.
We used to work a lot of young people between 18 to 29, but now we open to everyone that wants to emancipate and become this cook, chef, or social entrepreneur. But we also work with different nonprofits with the Solidarity Kitchens. So we have the biggest nonprofits in Brazil, like Gerando Falcões, Organicamente Rango, but you also have very small neighborhood associations that have a kitchen there, and they want to get more professional. So Gastromotiva nowadays work with individuals, but also because we learned so much about governance, about infrastructure, that we are bringing through the Solidarity Kitchens more professionalization towards these organizations.
So they can then implement the knowledge and skills to...
Exactly, because if I learn how to, our way, on how to do fundraise, we're going to teach everything we know about fundraising to all these organizations. And we're also going to bring others that do better than us with maybe publics that we don't. And we all learn together.
Of course.
And the third thing that I really think we don't say about Gastromotiva, but that this is like what I am. I'm a networkaholic. Is to put organizations together.
Yeah.
I know this wealthy individual, if they go to see that kitchen in that place, they will put some money. So I do that.
Yeah.
And we were able to bring there was a TV crew that was filming me for 4 days. And I took them to the kitchen we were gonna visit.
Yeah.
And when I left, I understood that they had some talks with the guys there, and they had a threat of the place getting fired because of the electric systems. So they put some money so they could change all the electric systems for that kitchen. And this is the beauty, Gastromotiva is also a space like this space for connection.
Yeah.
For you to go there and build something.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that we got from the work. Gastromotiva is here because someone connected, myself or someone to my team, that could make things better for Gastromotiva.
That's
so
fantastic.
We just continue that, and we really honor that. It's the place that we honor all the connectivities.
That's great. Now...
As engrenagens.
No,
Eu posso depois sempre falar no final as engrenagens.
No, thank you for sharing. Now, what is Gastromotiva impact in numbers, but also qualitatively speaking? So you mentioned a few numbers already, but could you please summarize the impact of Gastromotiva since you started?
Okay, so we work nowadays in Brazil and Mexico.
Yeah.
We have worked with the World Food Program in El Salvador. We have made a consultancy in South Africa for a restaurant to become a restaurant school.
Yeah.
So we've trained more than 6,500 people in Brazil. If we put Mexico together, it's over 7,000. We have brought workshops on health, nutrition for more than 100,000 families. Here we have saved more than 300,000 tons of food and have fed more than 2.8 million people.
That's fantastic.
Over this last 6 years almost. With the pandemic, this number, the 2 million is only through the pandemic.
Of course.
But I guess if I could summarize the impact, the qualitative impact, yes, of course, you have people employed and happy, bringing income to other people in their families or to people who work with them. You have a ripple effect of employment. You have better health because once you start cooking with this food in a healthy food, and we're talking in a country that people basically have very difficult access to have protein, and for vegetables, mostly processed food that people can eat. People are eating better. But Gastromotiva started because I understood with Urideia, who comes from a favela, that we need a click to believe that we can do it.
Yeah.
For self-responsibility, for belonging that I mentioned to you that is very important, and to dream again.
Yeah.
And in 2019, I had this insight that with the 10 years that we have to achieve the SDGs, with all the connections we had, I was asking myself, what would I do if I had $10 million? There was a day in 10 years, I would transform the life of 10 million people. And we've been asking about this lab of innovation, what is transform the life of 10 million people? Okay, we're feeding to 8 million. Is it to feed 10 million people? No, it's not. Or is to employ 10 million people? Might be that we're gonna go put as a quantitative goal to
but it's
train
to change
and
the
employ
system, to change the
10 million
perspective.
people. But it's in 10 years to change the perspective of 10 million people.
Absolutely.
And that's how we're gonna do. After understanding all our pillars, having 130 kitchens open all over Brazil and Mexico, we're taking 2022, 23, and 24 to wrap the best social technologies that we have created to become public policies from 25, 2030. But I'm sure with the right partners, with the right resources, with humility, listening to the community, bringing them to the center of the change, we can do it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for all your insights. It was great. I think that I learned a lot today. I'm sure the audience did as well. Last question. Could you please describe Gastromotiva in 3 words?
So the food and gastronomy, I think, is already there.
Yeah.
But I would use that for what we believe and we work every day. First, humanity. And then education.
Yeah.
And then social technology.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Any last comments, thoughts, advices for the audience that is listening to us today?
When I was selected to become a social entrepreneur by Ashoka, the phrase of Ashoka was, everybody can be a change maker.
Yeah.
So I would use that, everyone that is reading,
I agree.
So everyone that is watching, go look inside yourself, in your purpose, towards others, where is your gift, and share.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much again for all your insights. It was a pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, same.